The car trunk was slightly open, and among the shopping bags I saw my daughter Sarah's forgotten purse. A flash of brown leather that caught my attention like a magnet. In that instant, a cold chill ran down my spine, a premonition so violent it made me tremble. "Stop the car! Right now!" I yelled at my sister Linda, who was driving calmly down the country road taking us back home. Linda looked at me alarmed, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. "What's wrong? Bernice? Do you feel sick?" "Stop the car." I repeated, my voice sounding more hysterical than I intended. At 72 years old, I had learned to trust my instincts, and right then, every fiber of my being was screaming at me that something was terribly wrong. My sister thought I was overreacting. I saw it in her eyes in the way she sighed before starting to slow down, but she still decided to pull over onto the shoulder that stretch of dirt and gravel on the side of the asphalt. That was the decision that saved our lives, because inside that purse was something that would change everything I thought I knew about my own family. We had spent 3 days in the city, Linda and I, 2 older sisters, taking a trip to handle bank matters, visit doctors, and enjoy those little urban luxuries we didn't have back home. The return trip was always more relaxed than the drive there. Linda drove with that calm that comes from years of experience, humming old songs as the afternoon sun painted the landscape in golden tones. We had been on the road for about an hour when I decided to get more comfortable. I stretched a bit, turned my neck to relieve the tension, and that's when my eyes landed on the space between the back seats and the trunk. The purse. That object that shouldn't have been there, forgotten among our belongings like a time bomb waiting to explode. My heart started beating faster. Sarah, my only daughter, had visited us the day before at the hotel. She had insisted on helping us organize the purchases in the trunk. I remembered her smile, her kisses on my cheeks, her affectionate words. "Mom, drive carefully. You know this highway can be dangerous at night." Why did that sentence suddenly send chills down my spine? "Linda," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "There's a purse back there. I think it's Sarah's." My sister glanced quickly in the rearview mirror. "Oh, yeah, she must have forgotten it yesterday. We'll give it to her when we get home." "No, I need to see it now." Linda frowned, but something in my tone made her understand this wasn't just a whim. She started looking for a safe place to stop, but I couldn't wait. I unbuckled my seatbelt and turned around, stretching my arm to reach the purse. My fingers barely grazed the brown leather. I stretched further, feeling the pull in my back. At 72, my body wasn't as flexible, but adrenaline gave me extra strength. "Bernice, for God's sake, you're going to hurt yourself." Linda sped up a little desperately, looking for a place to pull over. Finally, my fingers managed to grab one of the purse straps. I pulled it toward me with a sharp tug. The purse fell into my lap just as Linda found that safe spot on the shoulder and hit the brake. The car stopped with a jolt. Linda turned to me, her expression a mix of worry and frustration. "Are you going to explain to me what's going on?" I didn't answer. My eyes were fixed on the purse, which now rested on my lap. It was definitely Sarah's, brown with gold details with her initials engraved, D.E.M., Sarah Espinosa Morales. I had given it to her myself 2 years ago, but there was something strange. The purse was heavier than usual, too heavy to just hold her usual things. With trembling hands, I opened the main zipper. Inside were the typical things, a small mirror, lipstick, tissues. But underneath it all, wrapped in a silk scarf, was a cell phone. It wasn't the latest model iPhone that Sarah always carried. This one was different, a basic, cheap phone, the kind you can buy without needing to give personal information. A burner phone. The air seemed to leave my lungs. Linda leaned in to get a better look, her expression changing from curiosity to confusion. "What is that? Why would Sarah have 2 phones?" That was exactly the question that made my blood run cold. I took the device in my hands. It was warm, as if it had been on recently. The moment I held it, it vibrated. A notification, then another, and another. Someone was sending messages. I pressed the power button. The screen lit up, showing WhatsApp notifications. The phone had no password, no protection at all. "Bernice," Linda's voice sounded tense, "maybe we shouldn't—" But I had already opened the messaging app. The last chat was with a contact saved simply as M. The messages were recent. Very recent. They just passed the checkpoint. M. 15 minutes ago. They must be close. Don't write anymore. Sarah. 12 minutes ago. Confirmed. Everything will go as planned. M. 10 minutes ago. My breathing became erratic. I scrolled up the conversation reading earlier messages. Each one was worse than the last. The mechanic confirmed the job on the brakes. They will fail at the curve on mile marker 48. M. From yesterday. My hands started to shake. Mile marker 48. The most dangerous curve on the entire highway, with a cliff on one side and huge rocks on the other. Are you sure about this? It's your mother, Sarah. M. From 3 days ago. My daughter's reply came minutes later. We don't have another choice. The debts are $350,000. If we don't pay, Michael and I will be dead. The inheritance solves everything. Mom has properties worth over $2 million. No one will suspect an accident on that highway. The phone fell from my hands. Linda quickly picked it up and started reading, her face twisting into a mask of horror. Dear God, she whispered. Bernice, this can't be real. But I knew it was real. In that terrible moment, all the pieces fit together. Sarah's frequent visits in recent weeks, her insistence that I give her power of attorney, her questions about my will, about my bank accounts, her nervousness when I told her I preferred to wait before signing any documents. Keep reading, I told Linda in a voice I didn't recognize as my own. My sister swiped her finger across the screen. There were more messages, conversations going back 2 months. There were photos, pictures of documents Sarah had secretly taken, my will, bank statements, property deeds. Bernice, we have to call the police. Linda was already reaching for her phone. This is attempted murder. No, not yet. What do you mean, no? Your daughter is trying to kill you. She was right. But something inside me resisted. I needed to think. I needed to understand before I acted. I looked ahead. According to the odometer, we were at mile 35. The deadly curve was just 13 miles away. The silence inside the car was deafening. Linda was looking at me, waiting for an explanation, waiting for me to say something that made sense. But how could I explain that my own daughter had planned my death with the coldness of someone planning a vacation? I need to think, I murmured, holding the burner phone in my hands as if it were a venomous snake. I need to understand everything before I make a move. Think. Linda's voice went up an octave. Bernice, there's nothing to think about. Sarah and that bastard Michael planned to kill us. They tampered with the car's brakes. At any moment we could... I know. I cut her off, my voice sounding strangely calm. But if we call the police now, they'll find out. And if they find out, they'll find a way to escape or destroy the evidence. We need to be smarter than them. My sister looked at me as if I had gone crazy. Maybe she was right. Maybe the shock of discovering my own daughter's betrayal had broken something in my brain. But as I held that phone, as I reread those cold, calculating messages, something inside me was transforming. The pain was there. Of course. A deep, searing pain that tore at my chest. But on top of that pain, something else was beginning to grow. Something cold, something sharp. Rage. Not the explosive rage that makes you scream and break things. No. This was different. It was a rage of ice, clear and precise as a scalpel. Sarah had planned my death. My only daughter, the child I had carried in my womb, whom I had breastfed, whom I had raised alone after her father abandoned us. That same person had decided that I was worth more dead than alive. $350,000 in debt, $2 million in properties. The math was simple for her, apparently. Bernice, please. Linda had tears in her eyes. We can't stay in this car. If the brakes... You're right. I made a quick decision. We're going to test the brakes right now while we're still in a safe place. Linda nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. She put the car in drive, slowly moving just a few feet on the empty shoulder. Then she hit the brake. The car stopped normally. She tried again, this time harder. The vehicle responded well, stopping short. "They seem to be working," Linda said, but her voice didn't sound relieved. "Maybe the plan was for them to fail gradually like the message said. Maybe we haven't reached the point where—" "Mile 48, I finished. They designed this so the brakes would fail exactly at the most dangerous curve. We are 13 miles away. The mechanism is probably set to deteriorate progressively." The precision of the plan was terrifying. They didn't want the car to fail just anywhere. They wanted to make sure that when the brakes stopped working, we would be in exactly the worst possible place. A place where an accident would be fatal. A place where no one would question that two elderly women simply lost control of the vehicle. I looked at the phone again. There was a message I hadn't read completely before. "The mechanic says it's undetectable. He used a special fluid that corrodes the system gradually. By the time they reach the critical point, there will be no way to stop the car. And after the impact, the fire will take care of eliminating any evidence." Michael. From a week ago. The fire. Of course. They had thought of everything. "Listen to me. Linda." I turned to my sister, taking her hands. They were ice cold, shaking. "We are going to pretend we found nothing. We are going to act as if everything is normal." "Normal?" Linda looked at me incredulous. "How are we going to—" "We are going to call Sarah. We're going to tell her we found her purse. We're going to watch her reaction. Bernice, that's dangerous. If she suspects we saw—" "She won't suspect." My voice was firm, decisive. "Because we are going to be very careful. We are going to act exactly like two elderly women who found a forgotten purse and want to return it to its owner." Linda studied me for a long moment. I watched her process my words, watched her expression shift from fear to something resembling understanding. My sister was 5 years younger than me, but she was no fool. She knew what I was proposing. "You want to set a trap for them," she finally said. "I want justice," I corrected. "And I want to make sure that when they fall so hard they can never get up again." I took my own cell phone from my bag. Sarah was in my favorite contacts with a smiling photo from 2 years ago. That photo now looked like the mask of a stranger. I pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. "Mom?" Sarah's voice sounded normal, even affectionate. "Did you get home already? Is everything okay on the road?" Every word was a stab in the back, because I knew that behind that sweet voice, my daughter was waiting for the news of my death. "Hi, sweetheart." I forced my voice to sound calm, motherly. "We're not home yet. Actually, we stopped because we found your purse in the trunk. You forgot it yesterday when you helped us with the shopping." There was a silence, brief but long enough, a silence that screamed panic. "My purse?" Sarah's voice had changed subtly. It didn't sound so relaxed anymore. "Oh, right, I didn't even notice. It's not important, Mom. You can bring it to me when you get here." "Well, the thing is, it has your phone in it," I said, observing every word, measuring the impact. "Your iPhone. I thought you might need it." Another pause, this time longer. "My iPhone, no, Mom. I have my iPhone right here with me. Maybe it's an old phone I left in there a long time ago." She was lying. I could hear it in her voice, the barely contained nervousness. Linda noticed it too, her hand squeezing my arm. "Oh, maybe so," I replied with a casual tone. "Anyway, you'll stop by tomorrow to pick it up, right?" Yes, I'll stop by tomorrow." Sarah was rushing to end the conversation. "Mom, be careful on the road. That highway is dangerous, especially the big curve. Drive slowly, okay?" The big curve, the one at mile 48, my own daughter was warning me about the exact spot where she had planned my death. The irony was so dark it almost made me laugh. "We will, sweetheart. I love you." "I love you too, Mom." I hung up. The last words hung in the air of the car like an invisible poison. "I love you," I repeated in a low voice. How can she say that when she's waiting for me to die? Linda didn't answer. There was no answer to that question. Immediately after I hung up, the burner phone in my hand started vibrating. WhatsApp messages coming in one after another. It was Sarah writing to M, who was obviously Michael, her husband. "Crap! They found the purse!" Sarah, 30 seconds ago. What? How? Michael, 20 seconds ago. I forgot it in the car. She just called me, said she found a phone inside. Sarah, 15 seconds ago. Did she check the phone? Michael, 10 seconds ago. I don't know. She sounded normal. But if she saw the messages... Michael, we're finished. Sarah, 5 seconds ago. Calm down. If she had seen anything, she wouldn't have called acting normal. She probably just saw the phone and thought it was yours. Old women like her don't even know how to use those devices. Michael, right now. Old women like her. Linda read that message over my shoulder and choked back an indignant cry. I remained silent, but something inside me hardened even more. Michael. The man who had entered my family 10 years ago, the man I had welcomed like a son, was calling me an old woman while planning my murder. What do we do now? Sarah, we stick to the plan. If she suspected anything, she would have turned around or called the police. The fact that they're still on their way means she knows nothing. In less than an hour, it will all be over. Michael, in less than an hour, it will all be over. I looked at the car's clock. It was 4:37 p.m. According to their calculations, by 5:30, I would be dead. Linda, too. 2 victims of a tragic car accident on a rural highway known for being dangerous. We are not going to reach that curve, I said suddenly. We are going to do something different. What do you mean? Linda looked at me with a mix of fear and curiosity. We're going to pretend something is wrong with the car. We're going to call a tow truck and have it towed. But we're not going home. We're going straight to a mechanic's shop. Understanding lit up Linda's face. To document what they did to the car. Exactly. We need physical evidence. The messages are important, but a professional mechanic's report is irrefutable. Linda nodded slowly, drying her last tears. I could see she was transforming too. The initial shock was giving way to something stronger. We were in this together, 2 sisters against the world. Or more specifically, against my own daughter. Linda started the engine again, but this time we didn't move forward. Instead, she turned the wheel and began to make a U-turn, driving away from the direction we were headed. Away from mile 48. Away from the death my daughter had planned in such detail. There's a garage in the town we passed about half an hour ago, Linda said, her voice now firm and determined. The owner is Ben. Do you remember him? He was in school with your late husband. He's trustworthy. I nodded vaguely, remembering a large man in his 60s who had always been kind to me the few times we'd met. Trustworthy. That word now had a completely different meaning to me. I had trusted Sarah my entire life, and look where that trust had gotten me. The burner phone vibrated again. More messages between Sarah and Michael. What if we check the car ourselves to make sure everything is still in place? Sarah, we can't risk being seen near her house or on the highway. We already did our part by visiting her yesterday. Any strange move now would raise suspicions if something goes wrong. Michael, you're right. God, I'm so nervous. I can't stop thinking about... Sarah, don't think. Just wait. In an hour, the police will call reporting the accident. We'll act surprised, devastated. We'll go to the scene, we'll cry, we'll do everything expected of a grieving family. Michael, what if they survive? Sarah's question chilled my blood. There was no hope in those words. She wasn't asking with relief. She was asking out of fear that her plan would fail. They won't survive. The mechanic was very clear. At the speed the car will be going, and with the weight of the vehicle, the drop will be at least 150 feet. Nobody survives that, and if by some miracle they do, the fire will take care of the rest. Michael. I closed my eyes, feeling sick. Linda noticed my paleness and reached out a hand to touch my arm. Don't read anymore. Bernice, we've seen enough. But I needed to see. I needed to understand just how far the betrayal went. I kept scrolling through the messages, finding conversations from previous days. There was a message from a week ago that caught my attention. I spoke with the lawyer. Once we have the death certificate, we can start the inheritance process. Since I'm the only child and have power of attorney for some accounts, access to the funds will be almost immediate, at least $500,000. Sarah, Perfect. With that, we pay off the loan sharks and have enough left over to disappear for a while. When we come back, we'll inherit the rest, and nobody will suspect a thing. Michael. Do you think it will work? Sarah. It worked before. Michael. I froze, staring at that last line. It worked before. What did that mean? Had they done this before? Had Michael killed someone else? Linda, reading over my shoulder, let out a small gasp. Bernice, that man is a murderer. I kept searching, my fingers trembling as I swiped the screen. I found the conversation that explained everything. It was from 3 months ago. My mother died exactly the way I'm planning for yours to die. Car accident. No one suspected a thing. I inherited everything. That's how I got the money for our wedding. Michael. You killed your own mother. Sarah. I did what was necessary. She was old sick. She was going to die in a few years anyway. I just sped up the inevitable and secured our future. Now we'll do the same with Bernice. Think about it. Sarah, your mother is 72. How many more years do you think she'll live? 5, 10? Is it worth waiting and risking losing everything because of our debts? Michael. I don't know. Michael. She's my mother. Sarah. She's an obstacle. Nothing more. Love doesn't pay off $350,000 in debt. Love doesn't stop the loan sharks from breaking our legs, or worse. Your mother is our only way out. Michael. Okay, we'll do it. Sarah. Okay, we'll do it. 2 words that sealed my death sentence. My daughter had chosen. Between her mother and money, she had chosen money. Between my life and her comfortable one, she had chosen hers. The car stopped abruptly, and I realized we had arrived at the mechanic's shop. It was a modest building with a large open bay door where several vehicles could be seen in different states of repair. A hand-painted sign read, Ben's Garage, trusted repairs since 1985. A man in grease-stained overalls came out when he heard the engine. It was Ben, with more gray hair than I remembered, but with the same kind expression on his face. Linda, Bernice. His smile faded when he saw our faces. What happened? Are you okay? Linda got out of the car first, walking up to him. I got out more slowly, still holding the burner phone in my hand. My mind was racing, calculating what to say, how to explain without revealing too much yet. Ben, we need your help, I said, my voice sounding calmer than I felt. We need you to check the brakes on this car, right now. And we need you to document everything you find. The mechanic frowned, looking at the vehicle. Are you having problems with the brakes? Did you feel something strange while driving? Not exactly, Linda intervened, but we have reason to believe that someone may have tampered with the braking system. Ben looked at us with an expression mixing surprise and concern. It wasn't a common request. People didn't just show up at a garage asking them to document sabotage. That's very serious, he said slowly. If someone altered a vehicle's brakes, we're talking about attempted homicide. You should call the police. We will, I assured him. But first we need solid evidence. You can help us. Ben studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Of course. Give me a few minutes. I'm going to put the car on the lift and check it completely. If there's anything out of place, I'll find it. While he got ready, Linda and I sat in a small waiting room with plastic chairs and old magazines. The smell of motor oil and gasoline filled the air. Normally, it would have bothered me, but now I barely noticed. My mind was elsewhere, processing everything I had discovered. Sarah hadn't just planned my death. She had married a man who had killed his own mother. How had I not noticed? How had I been so blind I remembered the wedding? 10 years ago. Sarah radiant in her white dress. Michael handsome and charming, telling me how his mother had tragically passed away in a car accident just before they met. He had cried telling me that story. Fake tears. Now I knew. Crocodile tears while he was probably celebrating his perfect crime internally. And I had believed him. I had opened my home, my family, my heart to him. The burner phone vibrated again. This time, it was an incoming call. The name on the screen said M. Michael was calling. I looked at Linda, who shook her head violently. We shouldn't answer. but a part of me wanted to hear his voice. I wanted to confirm that the monster from the messages was real. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Seconds later, an audio message arrived. With trembling hands, I pressed play. "Sarah, damn it, answer the phone." Michael's voice was tense, anxious. "I need to know if your mother checked that phone. If she saw the messages, this whole thing is screwed. Call me as soon as you hear this." I put the phone in my purse just as Ben walked into the waiting room. His expression was grim, and in his hands he carried a container with dark liquid. "Ladies," he said, his voice heavy with seriousness. "You need to see this." He led us into the garage where the car was on the lift. He pointed toward the brake system, specifically at the lines that carried the fluid. "Look here. Someone injected a corrosive compound into the brake fluid. It's something I've only seen once before in an insurance fraud case. This chemical progressively degrades the internal lines. The brakes work normally at first, but after a certain distance or a certain amount of use, the lines weaken until they rupture completely." "How much further would we have gotten before they failed?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Ben did some mental calculations looking at the car's odometer. With the amount of chemical they used and considering the vehicle's weight, I'd say between 10 and 15 more miles. After that, the brakes would have completely failed. Without any warning. 10 to 15 miles. We would have reached exactly mile 48. The deadly curve. The plan was perfect. Diabolically perfect. "Can you document all of this?" Linda had her phone out and was taking pictures. "We need proof." "I'm already on it." Ben had brought a camera and was photographing every angle of the brake system. "I'm also going to take samples of the contaminated fluid for analysis. This is evidence of a crime, ladies. You have to call the police now." He was right. We had enough. The messages on the phone, the sabotaged car, the mechanic's documentation. It was time to make the call. But before I could take out my phone, Sarah's device vibrated again. This time it was a different message from a number not saved in the contacts. "The payment is ready. $15,000 as we agreed. Transferred as soon as you confirm the job." Unknown number. The corrupt mechanic. The man who had accepted money to become an accomplice to murder. And suddenly, I had an idea. "We're not calling the police just yet," I said, surprising both Linda and Ben. My sister looked at me as if I'd lost my mind. "Bernice, we have everything. The messages, the sabotaged car, the physical proof. What more do you need? I need Sarah and Michael to believe their plan worked." The words came out of my mouth with a clarity that surprised me. "I need them to think they won, that I'm dead. Only then will they lower their guard completely." Ben scratched his head, confused. "I don't understand. Why would you want to do that?" I sat down on a nearby stool, organizing my thoughts. The cold rage I had felt earlier was transforming into something more calculated, more dangerous. Sarah planned every detail of my death. It's time for me to plan every detail of her downfall. Because if we call the police now, they'll get a good lawyer. They'll say the messages are fake, that someone else has access to that phone. Michael is smart. He's done this before. He'll find a way to plant reasonable doubt. Linda sat down next to me, taking my hand. "What are you thinking, sister?" "I'm thinking we need more than evidence. We need a confession. We need them to expose themselves, to say what they did out loud, thinking no one is listening. That's risky," Ben warned, "and possibly illegal." "I know." I looked at the burner phone resting in my lap. "But Sarah taught me something today. She taught me that sometimes to survive, you have to be as ruthless as your enemy." The plan began to form in my mind. It was risky, yes, but it was also the only way to make sure Sarah and Michael paid for everything. Not just for trying to kill me, but for the murder of Michael's mother, for all the lies, all the manipulation. "I'm going back home," I announced, "but not in this car. Ben, do you have a vehicle you can lend us?" The mechanic nodded slowly. "I have an old truck. It's not fancy, but it runs well." "Perfect. Linda and I will go home in that truck. This car stays here as evidence. I need you to keep it in a safe place and not tell anyone we were here." "And what will you tell Sarah when you get home?" Linda still looked skeptical. "I'll tell her we had mechanical problems on the road and that a good Samaritan helped us. I'll give her back her purse, her phone, and I'll act like the trusting, loving mother she expects. And in the meantime, I'm going to prepare my own plan. Ben lent us his truck, an old but reliable Ford. Before we left, I made sure he understood the importance of keeping the car hidden and not mentioning our visit to anyone. I explained enough for him to understand the gravity of the situation, but not all the details. The fewer people who knew, the better. The drive back home was tense. Linda drove the truck while I stared out the window, watching the familiar landscape pass by with new eyes. Everything looked different now. The world was darker, more dangerous. I could no longer trust my own daughter. "Do you really think we can do this?" Linda broke the silence after 20 minutes on the road. "We have to, not just for us, for Michael's mother too. She deserves justice even if she's not here to see it." My sister nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She was scared. I was too, but the fear no longer paralyzed me. It gave me strength. When we arrived at my house, the sun was already setting, painting the sky in oranges and reds. The house looked quiet, peaceful. No one would have guessed that its owner had just discovered her daughter was planning to murder her. We went in through the front door. Everything was exactly as I had left it 3 days ago. The plants that needed water, the mail piling up on the entry table, the absolute normality of a life that no longer existed. "I'm going to take a bath," I announced, leaving my luggage in the hallway. "I need to think." Linda nodded, understanding. I needed a moment alone. As the hot water cascaded over me, I allowed the tears to finally flow. I had kept my composure all this time, but now in the privacy of my bathroom, I let myself feel the full pain of the betrayal. Sarah, my baby, the girl I had rocked to sleep, whom I had cared for when she was sick, whom I had defended from all harm. That same girl now wanted me dead. Where had I gone wrong? What had I done wrong as a mother? But then I remembered the messages, the coldness with which Sarah had accepted Michael's plan, the ease with which she had chosen money over my life. And I realized that maybe it hadn't been my fault. Maybe some people were just born with something broken inside. Or maybe Michael had slowly poisoned her over these 10 years of marriage. I got out of the bath feeling stronger, more determined. I put on comfortable clothes and went down to the kitchen where Linda was making tea. "Sarah called," my sister said without looking at me. "She asked if you had arrived safely. I told her yes, that you had a small problem with the car, but that a kind man helped you." She sounded relieved that her plan had failed, or maybe relieved that I hadn't yet discovered the truth. Good. Now I need to make a call. I took out my personal phone, not Sarah's burner. I searched for a name in my contacts. Catherine Herrera, my lawyer and friend for 30 years. Catherine answered on the second ring. "Bernice." What a surprise. How was the trip to the city? "Catherine, I need to see you early tomorrow. It's urgent and extremely confidential." There was a pause. Catherine knew me well enough to detect the seriousness in my voice. "Are you okay? Did something happen? I can't talk over the phone, but I need your help with something legal, something that could change my will and several other important documents." "I'll be at my office at 8 in the morning. Does that work for you?" "Perfect. Thank you, Catherine." I hung up and looked at Linda. "Tomorrow we start building our trap, but tonight I'm going to visit my daughter." "What?" Linda almost dropped her teacup. "Bernice, that's dangerous. If she suspects—" "She won't suspect anything, because I'm going to give her exactly what she expects, a loving and completely ignorant mother." I picked up Sarah's purse, which I had kept carefully. I'm going to return her purse personally, and I'm going to watch every detail of her reaction. The drive to Sarah's house took 15 minutes. She lived in a nice middle-class neighborhood in a 2-story house that I had helped pay for 5 years ago. Now that thought turned my stomach. I had invested so much in her happiness, and this is how she repaid me. Michael's car was in the driveway. Perfect. I wanted to see them both. I rang the doorbell, holding the purse with steady hands. I heard footsteps approaching. The door opened, revealing Sarah. She looked tense with dark circles under her eyes. She had been crying. "Mom," her voice trembled. "What are you doing here?" "I came to return your purse, sweetheart." I handed her the object with a motherly smile. "I didn't want you to worry about it." Sarah took the purse with trembling hands. Her eyes darted quickly looking for the burner phone. She found it exactly where I had left it, wrapped in the silk scarf. "Thanks, Mom. You didn't have to bother coming all the way out here." "It's no bother. Besides, I wanted to make sure you were okay. You sounded a little strange on the phone." "Strange?" Sarah laughed nervously. "No, not at all. I was just busy with some things." Michael appeared behind her, his expression carefully neutral. "Bernice, what a surprise. Please come in." I entered the house I also knew well. Everything looked normal. Family photos on the walls, comfortable furniture, the perfect appearance of a happy home. But now I knew the truth hiding behind that facade. "Do you want something to drink, Mom?" Sarah was putting the purse in a nearby closet, her body blocking my view, probably checking the phone discreetly. "No, thank you. I just wanted to drop this off and go home. It's been a long day." "How was the trip?" Michael had sat on the sofa, his posture relaxed, but his eyes alert. "Sarah mentioned you had car trouble." "Oh, that?" I waved my hand dismissively. "A strange noise in the engine. Nothing serious. A very kind man helped us, and we were able to continue without any problems." I saw the look that passed between Sarah and Michael. A silent communication. They were wondering why the plan had failed. Why I was there alive instead of dead at the bottom of a cliff. "I'm glad you're okay," Sarah said, coming back from putting the purse away. She looked more relaxed now, probably after confirming the phone hadn't been checked. "That highway can be very dangerous." "It is," I agreed, looking her directly in the eyes, "especially at the big curve on mile 48 right." Sarah paled slightly. "Yes, that curve is particularly bad." I stood up, smoothing my skirt. "Well, I'll let you rest. I just wanted to make sure I returned your purse, sweetheart." Sarah walked me to the door. Before I left, I hugged her. I felt her tense up in my arms, uncomfortable. I wondered if she had ever felt genuine love for me, or if it had always been just an act. "I love you, Sarah," I whispered in her ear. "I love you too, Mom." Lies. It was all lies. I returned home with a heavy heart but a clear mind. The game had begun. Sarah and Michael thought they had dodged a bullet. They thought their secret was safe. They had no idea the storm that was about to break over them. At 8 in the morning sharp, I was sitting across from Catherine Herrera's desk. My lawyer watched me with a mix of concern and curiosity as I explained everything. The messages on the burner phone, the sabotaged car, Sarah and Michael's plan to murder me. Catherine listened in silence, her professional expression hiding the shock she must have felt. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and exhaled slowly. "Bernice, I have no words. Sarah is your only daughter. I never imagined she was capable of something like this." "Neither did I." My voice sounded firmer than I felt. "That's why I need your help. I need to protect my assets and at the same time set a trap that forces them to confess." Catherine leaned forward, her fingers interlaced on the desk. "Tell me exactly what you have in mind." For the next hour, we worked out a meticulous plan. First, Catherine would draft a new will that completely removed Sarah as an heir. Everything would go to a charitable foundation we would create specifically for this purpose. Second, we would revoke any power of attorney Sarah might have over my accounts or properties. "But we're not going to register these changes immediately," I explained. "We're going to date them for today, but we'll keep them locked in your safe. If something happens to me, they take effect automatically." "That's smart," Catherine admitted, "but there's something else you need to do. You need to transfer your liquid assets to new accounts that Sarah doesn't know about. If she has access to your banking information, as you mentioned she does, she could try to drain those accounts before we can act." She was right. For the next 2 hours, with Catherine's help, I opened new bank accounts and transferred my savings. It was $800,000 in total, accumulated over a lifetime of work and sacrifice. Money that Sarah had taken for granted would be hers. "Now comes the delicate part," Catherine said, printing the documents for me to sign. "You said you want them to confess. How do you plan to achieve that?" Sarah thinks I'm a foolish old woman who doesn't know how to use technology. A cold smile appeared on my face. I'm going to use that belief against them. I'm going to invite them to dinner at my house, and I'm going to record the entire conversation. Catherine frowned. Recordings without consent may not be admissible in court, depending on the circumstances. Then we'll make sure the circumstances are right. Besides, I don't need it to be admissible in court. I just need it to exist. Once I have the recorded confession, I can use it as leverage to get a formal confession. My lawyer studied me for a long moment. You've become very calculating, Bernice. Sarah taught me well. My voice was bitter. She taught me that in this world, you're either the predator or the prey. Before leaving Catherine's office, I made one last request. I need you to investigate Michael Morales. Specifically, I need information about his mother's death. You said you have contacts in the police. Use those contacts. Catherine wrote down the name. Do you really think he killed his mother? I'm sure of it. And if I can prove it, he won't just go down for trying to kill me. He'll go down for 2 murders. I left the office feeling more in control of the situation. The pieces were falling into place. Sarah and Michael still thought they were in control, but I was cutting off their access to everything they desired. When I got home, I found Linda in the kitchen preparing lunch. She looked tired with dark circles, revealing she had slept little. How did it go with Catherine? She asked, pouring coffee. Good, very good. All my assets are protected now. Sarah won't be able to touch anything even if something happens to me. Linda nodded, but she didn't seem relieved. Bernice, I've been thinking all night. Are you sure you want to go through with this? We can still go to the police with what we have. I sat across from her, taking her hand. Sarah and Michael are smart. They'll get good lawyers. They'll say someone else planted that phone, that the messages are fake. Michael has already gotten away with murder once. I can't risk him escaping again. But the car, the mechanic documented everything. And they'll say it was some enemy, someone who wanted to harm them. They'll plant reasonable doubt. But if I have them confessing on tape, admitting to their crimes in their own voices... I left the sentence unfinished. Linda sighed deeply. When will you have the dinner? This weekend. I'll tell them I want to celebrate that we arrived safely from the trip. It will be ironic, don't you think? My sister didn't smile at my attempt at dark humor. This could be dangerous. If they suspect anything... They won't suspect, because I'm going to continue being the trusting, loving mother, the foolish old woman who knows nothing. The rest of the week passed in a kind of surreal normality. Sarah called me twice, asking how I was, if I had taken the car to be checked after the mechanical problem. Every conversation was a play where we both acted out our roles. She, the concerned daughter. Me, the mother grateful for her attention. Meanwhile, Catherine was working in the background. She called me on Wednesday with news. Bernice, I found something on Michael's mother. She died 11 years ago in a car accident. The official report says she lost control on a curve. But there was one investigator who thought something didn't add up. The car's brakes were completely destroyed. Too destroyed for a simple accident. So, did they investigate further? No. Michael inherited, quickly sold his mother's properties and moved to another city. This town, in fact. A year later, he met Sarah. It all fit. Michael had perfected his method with his own mother, and now he was repeating it with me. On Friday night, I called Sarah. Hi, sweetheart. I want to invite you and Michael to dinner tomorrow. I want to cook your favorite dish, the one you loved so much when you were a little girl. There was a brief pause. Tomorrow? Let me check with Michael. Yes, Mom. We'll be there. What time? 7 o'clock. And Sarah, bring an appetite. It's going to be a special night. She had no idea how special it would be. For her, it would be the night everything came crashing down. The night she would discover that her mother wasn't as foolish as she thought. The night the prey would become the hunter. Saturday passed in a kind of tense calm. Linda and I spent the day preparing the house for dinner. I cooked Sarah's favorite dish, that chicken stew with spices she had loved since childhood. Every time I had prepared it before, I had done it with love. Today, I was doing it with a completely different purpose. While the stew simmered, I prepared the other crucial element of the night. Catherine had gotten me a small, discreet, and effective recording device. I placed it strategically under the dining room table, hidden among the decorative items. I also activated the voice recorder on my cell phone, which I would casually leave on the table. "Are you sure about this?" Linda asked me for the 10th time that day. She was nervous, wringing a dish towel in her hands. "Completely sure." I tasted the stew, adjusting the salt. "Tonight, Sarah and Michael are going to show their true faces. I just need to push them in the right direction." At 7 o'clock sharp exactly, I heard Michael's car park in front of the house. My heart started beating faster, but I kept my expression serene. Linda positioned herself in the kitchen, ready to serve when needed. I opened the door with a big smile. Sarah was beautiful as always, in an elegant dress and perfect makeup. Michael, beside her, was dressed casually but neatly, the perfect image of a successful couple. "My darlings, come in, come in." I hugged them both, feeling the tension in their bodies. Sarah kissed my cheek, her lips cold against my skin. "It smells delicious, Mom," she said, entering the house. "It's your special stew." "Of course, I know how much you love it." Michael handed me a bottle of wine. "To go with dinner, Bernice." "How thoughtful, thank you." I took the bottle, noticing the expensive label. Probably bought with the money they thought they would inherit soon. We sat in the living room while Linda served appetizers. The conversation was superficial at first. The weather, the news, trivial comments about nothing important, but I could feel the tension under the surface. Sarah was watching me too closely, as if looking for signs that something was wrong. "How's the car, Mom?" Michael finally asked, his tone casual, but his eyes alert. "Sarah mentioned you had trouble on the road." "Oh, that." I waved my hand dismissively. "A strange noise, nothing more. I haven't had time to take it to the mechanic yet." I saw the look they exchanged. Confusion, worry. They were wondering why the car hadn't failed as planned. "You should get it checked soon," Sarah insisted. "Old cars can be unpredictable." "You're right, sweetheart. I'll do it next week." Linda announced that dinner was ready. We moved to the dining room, where I had set the table with my best china. The cell phone rested innocently near my plate, its recorder active. The device under the table waited silently. As I served the stew, I decided to start planting the seeds of my plan. "You know, I've been thinking a lot this week about the future," I said casually. "At 72, one can't help but think about these things." Sarah tensed immediately. "Mom, don't talk like that. You have many years ahead of you." "Maybe, maybe not." I took a sip of wine. "In any case, this week I went to see Catherine. We made some adjustments to my legal documents." The silence that followed was palpable. Michael stopped eating, his fork suspended in midair. Sarah stared at me with wide eyes. "What kind of adjustments?" Sarah's voice was forced casual. "Oh, nothing dramatic. I just wanted to make sure everything was in order. The properties, the bank accounts, the will." I smiled sweetly. "One never knows when they might need these things, right? You changed your will." Michael leaned forward momentarily, forgetting his act of the disinterested son-in-law. "I made some modifications. Yes. Catherine advised me on certain legal protections." I looked directly at Sarah. "Especially considering you've been so interested in my finances lately." Sarah paled. "What do you mean by that? Well, all your questions about the deeds, the power of attorney, the bank statements." I kept my tone light, almost amused. "A mother notices these things." The atmosphere at the table changed drastically. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Linda, from her position in the kitchen, watched me with concern. "I'm just worried about you, Mom," Sarah said defensively. "I want to make sure you're protected." "Protected from what exactly?" I let the question hang in the air. "Or protected from whom?" Michael intervened, his voice controlled but tense. "Bernice, I think you're misinterpreting Sarah's intentions. She only wants what's best for you." "What's best for me?" I repeated, setting my fork down on the plate. "Tell me Michael does what's best for me. Include a car trip with sabotaged brakes." The silence that followed was absolute. Sarah had stopped breathing. Michael was completely still, his face a mask of shock. "What? What are you saying?" Sarah finally found her voice, but it sounded high-pitched hysterical. "I'm saying I know everything." I leaned back in my chair, watching them calmly. "I know about the burner phone. I know about the messages between you and Michael. I know about the plan to kill me at the curve on mile 48. Sarah stood up abruptly, her chair falling backward with a crash. "That's ridiculous. What are you talking about? Sit down, Sarah." My voice was ice cold. "And stop acting. I found your purse in the car. I found the phone. I read every message, every detailed plan of how to murder me to collect the inheritance." Michael had also stood up, his face red with anger. "This is insane. I don't know what phone you're talking about. Someone is lying to you, manipulating you against your own daughter." "Really?" I took the burner phone out of my pocket and placed it on the table. "So this isn't yours, Sarah, and these messages about the $350,000 debt, about hiring a mechanic to tamper with my car's brakes." Sarah stared at the phone as if it were a venomous snake. Her lips trembled, searching for words that wouldn't come. "You," Michael started moving threateningly closer, "you have no right to look through private things." "I have every right when those private things include plans to murder me." I stood up facing him. Despite my 72 years, I was not going to be intimidated. "And it's not just me, is it, Michael? You killed your mother too?" "Same method, same plan. You thought no one would find out." Michael's face transformed completely. The mask of the charming son-in-law vanished, revealing something dark and dangerous underneath. "You have no proof of anything," he spat the words. "That phone could be anyone's. The messages could be fake." "But they're not." My voice remained firm. "And I have more than the phone. I have the car. I took it to a trusted mechanic. He documented everything. The corrosive chemical in the brake system, the exact plan for them to fail at mile 48. Sarah started to cry loud sobs, shaking her body. "Mom, please, you have to understand. We were desperate. The loan sharks were going to kill us if we didn't pay. We had no choice. No choice." The rage finally seeped into my voice. "Your only choice was to murder your own mother. Do you know how many times I helped you when you had money problems? How many times I paid your debts, your whims? And this is how you repay me. You don't understand." Sarah screamed. "This time was different. It was too much money. And you have so much, Mom, $2 million in properties. Why do we have to wait until you die naturally?" There it was, the confession I needed, recorded perfectly on 2 different devices. Sarah's words hung in the air like poison. Linda had come out of the kitchen, watching the scene in horror. Michael had realized too late what Sarah had just admitted. "Shut up," he hissed at Sarah, grabbing her arm. "Don't say anything else." But the damage was done. Sarah collapsed into her chair, crying uncontrollably. The entire facade of the concerned daughter had crumbled, revealing the greed and desperation underneath. Too late for silence. I said, my voice heavy with a calm I didn't feel. "You've already confessed, and every word was recorded." Michael turned to me, his eyes narrowed. "Recorded." I pointed to my cell phone on the table. "Modern technology. Michael, even us old women know how to use it when necessary." His face contorted in a grimace of fury. In 2 quick steps, he grabbed the phone and smashed it against the floor. The screen shattered, fragments of glass scattering everywhere. "There's your recording," he growled. I smiled. It was exactly the reaction I had anticipated. "That was just one. There's another device in this room, and copies in the cloud. And at my lawyer's office, destroying one phone doesn't erase the truth." Michael froze, processing my words. Sarah looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "Mom, please, we can fix this. It doesn't have to go to the authorities." "Fix it," I repeated in disbelief. "How exactly do you propose to fix an attempted murder? With an apology, with empty promises, with money?" Michael intervened, his calculating mind already looking for a way out. "We'll pay you, the $350,000 we owe, plus interest. Just don't go to the police." "With what money?" I asked coldly. "With the money you plan to inherit after killing me. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I've already transferred all my liquid assets to new accounts, accounts you don't know about and never will." Sarah let out a choked cry. "What, you can't? That's my inheritance." It was your inheritance, I corrected her. Before you decided you'd rather have it now and me dead. Now you will have nothing, not 1 cent. I will donate all of it before I leave anything to you. You can't do that. Sarah stood up again, her sadness turning to rage. I am your daughter, your only daughter. That money belongs to me by right. You have no right to my money while I'm alive. And thanks to my discovery of your plan, I'm going to be alive for many years to come. I stepped closer to her, looking her directly in the eyes. Do you know what the saddest part of all this is, Sarah? That if you had come to me, if you had told me about your debts, about your problems, I would have helped you. Just like I always did. You wouldn't have given me $350,000, she muttered. Maybe not the whole sum at once, but we would have found a solution. We would have talked to the lenders, set up a payment plan. We would have solved it together as a family. My voice broke slightly. But instead you chose to kill me. To kill. Michael started pacing back and forth like a caged animal. This is your fault, he snapped at Sarah. I told you to check the purse before you left the hotel. I told you to make sure you didn't leave anything compromising. Now you're blaming me, Sarah yelled back. You were the one who proposed all this. You were the one who said it was the only way. Because you wouldn't stop crying about the debts, because you wanted to keep this lifestyle we can't afford. I watched them fight, blaming each other, revealing the cracks in their relationship. Linda came up to me, taking my hand in a silent gesture of support. Enough, I said finally, my voice cutting through their argument. Your marital problems don't interest me. What interests me is justice, for me and for Michael's mother. Michael froze. What did you say? Your mother, the one you also killed 11 years ago using the exact same method. Sabotaged brakes, a dangerous curve, a convenient death. I pulled out a folder Catherine had prepared. I have the accident report. I have the notes from the investigator who suspected, but could never prove anything. And now I have the pattern. 2 elderly women, 2 identical accidents, 2 quick inheritances. The color drained from Michael's face. Sarah looked at him with growing horror. Michael, is it true? You killed your mother. He told you. I answered for him. It's in the phone messages. He told you he'd done it before, that it worked perfectly. And you agreed anyway. You knew you had married a murderer, and you still decided to help him kill your own mother. Sarah brought her hands to her mouth, nausea evident in her expression. But I didn't know if it was because of Michael's crime or because she'd been caught. This is over, Michael declared suddenly. His voice had changed, becoming cold and calculating again. You have no real proof about my mother. That case has been closed for years. And as for the car, we'll hire experts who will show the damage could have been accidental or caused by a third party. And Diana's recorded confession? I raised an eyebrow. She was under emotional distress. Any lawyer will dismiss it as unreliable. We'll say you manipulated her, that you confused her. He stepped dangerously close. You're an old woman, Bernice. Lawyers will argue that you're senile paranoid inventing conspiracy theories about your own family. Try it, I said, not backing down. And in the meantime, explain to the judge why your wife had a burner phone with detailed conversations about my murder. Explain why a mechanic documented corrosive chemicals in my brake system. Explain the coincidences with your mother's death. It's not enough, Michael insisted, but there was a hint of desperation in his voice now. Maybe not, but it will be enough to ruin your lives. Even if you don't go to prison, and believe me, I will do everything possible to make sure you do, your reputations will be destroyed. No one will want anything to do with you. No bank will lend you money. No employer will hire you. And those loan sharks you're so afraid of, do you think they'll give you more time when they find out all hope of payment is gone? I saw real fear appear in Sarah's eyes. The loan sharks. She had momentarily forgotten the original reason for all this, the debt that had pushed them to desperation. Mom, please. Sarah knelt in front of me, her hands grabbing my skirt. Please, there has to be another way. If we go to prison, the loan sharks will come after us anyway. We'll be dead in a month. You should have thought of that before you got into debt with criminals. Before you chose murder as a solution. My voice was steel. "I am not saving you, Sarah. Not this time. You have crossed a line that has no return. I'm your mother." She cried, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Mothers are supposed to protect their children always, and daughters are not supposed to plan to murder their mothers," I replied. "But here we are." Linda touched my shoulder gently. "Bernice, maybe we should call the police now." She was right. I had gotten what I needed. The confession, the evidence, it was all documented. It was time to end this. But before I could reach my backup phone, Michael moved fast as a snake. He grabbed a knife from the kitchen sideboard. The blade gleamed under the dining room light as he pointed it at me. "Nobody is calling anyone," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "We are all going to sit down and find a civilized solution to this." Linda gasped. Sarah stood up, looking at her husband in horror. "Michael, what are you doing?" "What I should have done from the beginning," he replied, not taking his eyes off me. "Taking control of the situation." I looked at the knife, then at Michael. And to his surprise, I smiled. "Go ahead," I said calmly. "Threaten me with a weapon. Better yet, use it. Just make sure the security cameras capture every second." Michael blinked, confusion crossing his face. "What cameras?" I pointed to the corners of the dining room. I had them installed this morning. 4 cameras, all recording in high definition, all streaming live to a cloud server. I was partially lying. There was only 1 camera, but he didn't know that. "So, please continue. This will only make the case against you easier." The knife trembled in Michael's hand. His eyes darted frantically, looking for the cameras I had mentioned. He found one mounted discreetly in the upper corner of the dining room. His face fell as he realized that every movement, every threatening word had been captured. "This is a trap," he whispered, the knife slowly lowering. "This whole thing was a trap from the beginning." "Of course it was," I confirmed. "Did you think I was going to let you get away with planning my death? Did you think I was going to be the silent, convenient victim you expected?" Sarah looked between Michael and me, her face a mask of absolute despair. "Mom, please. We can leave. We can disappear. You'll never see us again. Just let us go. So you can do this to someone else." Linda spoke for the first time in minutes, her voice firm. "So Michael can find another woman with a rich mother and repeat the same plan? No. Sarah, this ends here." Michael dropped the knife completely, the metal clattering against the hardwood floor. He sank into a chair, his head in his hands. "We're finished," he muttered. "Completely finished." "You finally understand," I said. I reached for my backup cell phone, the one I had kept in my pocket during the whole dinner. "Now I am going to call the police, and you are going to stay exactly where you are." "Wait." Sarah moved closer, but Linda stepped between us. "Mom, wait. If you're really going to do this, I at least need to know one thing. Is there any way you can ever forgive me? Any chance we can be mother and daughter again?" I looked at the woman in front of me, the child I had carried in my womb, whom I had raised alone after her father abandoned us, the child I had given everything to, sacrificed everything for, and now the woman who had planned my death with the coldness of someone planning a shopping trip. "I don't know, Sarah," I answered honestly. "Right now, looking at you, I don't see my daughter. I see a stranger. A stranger who chose $350,000 over her mother's life. It wasn't just for the money," Sarah sobbed. "The loan sharks. They said they would do horrible things, that they would find us no matter where we went. Michael said it was the only way to be safe. Michael lied, like he's lied about everything since he came into our lives." I looked at the man who was still holding his head in his hands. "And you chose to believe him instead of trusting me. That was your real choice, Sarah, not between money and me, between him and me. And you chose wrong." I dialed 911. Before they answered, Sarah made one last desperate attempt. "The loan sharks will kill us. Do you understand that if we go to prison, we'll be defenseless? They have contacts everywhere. They will find us and make us pay in the most horrible way possible. Then maybe you should have thought about that before getting into debt with criminals." I replied without emotion. Or better yet, before thinking murder was an acceptable solution. The operator answered. 911. What is your emergency? My name is Bernice Espinosa. I need to report an attempted murder. The people responsible are here in my house right now. I gave my address in a clear, firm voice. Are you in immediate danger, ma'am? The operator asked. I looked at Michael defeated in his chair and at Sarah crying on the floor. No, I'm not in danger anymore. The police arrived in 15 minutes. 2 patrol cars, 4 officers. One of them, an older man named Officer Miller, had known me for years. His expression grew darker and darker as I explained the situation, showing him the burner phone, the recordings, the mechanic's documentation. This is very serious, Bernice, Miller said after reviewing the evidence. We're going to need you to come to the station to make a formal statement, and we'll need that car as evidence. It's at Ben's garage. I'll provide the address. He has all the documentation of the sabotage. The other officers were handcuffing Sarah and Michael. My daughter was crying uncontrollably, begging them to listen to her to understand. Michael, on the other hand, remained silent, his face an impenetrable mask. You have the right to remain silent. One of the officers began reciting their rights. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I watched the scene as if I were outside my own body. This woman being arrested was my daughter. She carried my blood. She had grown up in my house, and now I was sending her to prison. Linda hugged me as the officers led Sarah and Michael out of the house. You did the right thing, she whispered in my ear. You had no other choice. I know, I replied, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. Before they put them in the patrol car, Sarah turned to me one last time. Mom, please don't let them do this. I'm your daughter. I didn't answer. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, I didn't know if I would scream or cry. The patrol car drove away, its red and blue lights illuminating the quiet neighborhood night. Neighbors had come out to their doors and windows watching the drama. By tomorrow, the whole town would be talking about it. Officer Miller stayed behind, finishing his report. Bernice, I know this is hard, but I want you to know you did the right thing by reporting this. Attempted murder is a very serious thing. What will happen now? I asked, my voice sounding tired. Based on the evidence you presented, they'll be formally charged with premeditated attempted murder. With the recordings, the messages, and the physical evidence from the car, the case is pretty solid. We will also investigate the death of Michael Morales' mother. They'll go to prison. Almost certainly, for a very long time. Miller closed his notebook. You'll need to testify at the trial. Will you be prepared for that? Yes, I replied without hesitation. I'll be prepared. After everyone had left, Linda and I were left in the silent house. The dining table was still set, the stew cooling in the untouched plates, the untouched glasses of wine, the remnants of a family dinner that never happened. Do you want me to stay tonight? Linda asked softly. Please. We sat in the living room in silence, processing everything that had happened. I had won. I had exposed Sarah and Michael. I had protected my assets. I had gotten justice. But the victory tasted bitter. Do you think I'll ever be able to forgive her? I asked in the darkness. Linda took my hand. I don't know, Bernice. Maybe with time, or maybe not. But what I do know is that you did what you had to do to survive, and that's not something you should feel guilty about. My phone rang. It was Catherine. Bernice, I just heard. Are you okay? I am. Processing it, I admitted. We need to meet tomorrow. There are legal matters to attend to. The will, the accounts, and you'll probably want to consider a restraining order in case they get out on bail. They won't get out, I said with certainty. The evidence is too strong. Even so, better to be safe. Catherine paused. Bernice, I know this is horrible, but you survived, and not only that, you fought back. Many women in your situation wouldn't have had the courage or the cunning to do what you did. After hanging up, I stared out the window into the night. Somewhere in this city, Sarah was in a cell facing the consequences of her actions. Part of me, the part that was still a mother, wanted to run and rescue her. But the stronger part, the part that had fought to survive, knew this was necessary. "Do you think the loan sharks will really go after them?" Linda asked. "Probably, but that's not my problem anymore." My voice sounded colder than I intended. Sarah made her choice. Now she has to live with the consequences, or in this case, survive them. 6 months later, I sat in my garden looking at the flowers I had planted that spring. Roses, gardenias, jasmine, the same ones my mother used to grow when I was a child. The morning sun was warm, but not overwhelming perfect for drinking the tea Linda had made me. Life had gone on as it always does. The trial had been swift and decisive. Sarah and Michael were sentenced to 20 years in prison for premeditated attempted murder. Michael received an additional 15-year sentence after they reopened his mother's case and found enough evidence to charge him with homicide. The similarities between the two cases had been impossible to ignore. Sarah had written me 3 letters from prison. All 3 remained unopened in a drawer of my desk. I wasn't ready to read them. Maybe I never would be. The loan sharks had tried to contact Sarah in prison, but the authorities had intervened. It turned out those criminals were being investigated for a dozen other serious crimes. Many of them also ended up behind bars. The irony was not lost on me. Catherine had finalized all the legal changes. My new will established a charitable foundation that would help elderly women victims of family financial abuse. It was a cause I now understood all too well. Sarah's name had been completely removed from all my legal documents. More tea. Linda appeared with the teapot, interrupting my thoughts. "Please." I held out my cup. My sister had moved in with me after everything that happened. Neither of us wanted to be alone, and her company had been a balm for my wounded soul. Together, we had begun to rebuild a life that didn't revolve around pain and betrayal. This came today. Linda handed me an envelope. It was from the state prison. Another letter from Sarah. The 4th one. I held it in my hands, feeling the weight of the paper. Part of me wanted to open it. I wanted to know what my daughter had to say after 6 months of incarceration. But the other part, the part that was still healing, knew I wasn't ready. "Are you going to read it?" Linda sat down next to me. "Maybe, someday." I put the letter in the pocket of my robe. But not today. A bird landed on the bird bath I had installed near the roses. I watched it drink, oblivious to human dramas, living its simple, pure life. There was a lesson in that, I thought, about letting go of the past and focusing on the present. "Ben called yesterday," Linda said. "He wants to know if you need him to check your new car." I had sold the sabotaged car as evidence after the trial and bought a new one. One that no one had touched, no one had tamed. One that was completely mine and safe. Tell him yes. Next week would be good. The breeze stirred the jasmine leaves, carrying their sweet fragrance. I closed my eyes, allowing myself this moment of peace. I had survived, not just physically, but emotionally. I had faced the worst betrayal imaginable and come out on the other side, not without scars. The scars were there, deep and invisible. They would probably never disappear completely. But I had learned to live with them, to not let them define who I was. "You know what the strangest part is?" I said suddenly. "I don't miss her. I thought I would, but I don't. I miss the Sarah I thought she was, the daughter I thought I had, but that person never really existed." Linda took my hand. Or maybe she did exist, but she got lost along the way. Greed, fear, Michael. All of that changed her. Maybe. I took a sip of tea, savoring the warmth. Or maybe she was always like this, and I just didn't want to see it. I didn't have the answers, and I had learned to be at peace with that. The phone rang inside the house. Linda got up to answer, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my garden. I heard her muffled voice through the open window. Then she returned with a smile. It was Catherine. The foundation is now fully established. She says they already have 3 cases of women who need help. I smiled for the first time in what felt like years. Something good was coming out of all this pain. Other women would not suffer in silence as I almost did. "Tell her I'll be at the office tomorrow. I want to meet those women." The sun continued its climb in the sky. The day stretched out before me, full of possibilities. I was no longer afraid. I no longer looked over my shoulder, wondering who might want to harm me. I had learned the hardest lesson of all, that sometimes the danger comes from where you least expect it, from the people you love the most. But I had also learned that you are stronger than you imagine, that you can survive even the deepest betrayal. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the sun on my face. At 72 years old, I had started a new life. A life without Sarah, yes, but also a life without fear, without lies, without hidden death plots. A life that was completely, finally mine. Linda sat back down next to me, and together we watched the garden in silence. We didn't need words. We had been through hell together and come out the other side. The rest of my life stretched out before me like that garden full of possibilities for growth, beauty, and peace. And this time I would live it on my own terms, without fear, without betrayal. Just me, my garden, and the quiet that comes after the storm.